Hello boys and girls, I'm back again. Now tonight we're starting a new unit called Telling Time. I'm going to introduce the unit to you, and I'm also going to teach you how to tell time by the hour. Now first, before we get started, I want to talk about the worksheet I gave you earlier. If you don't have it or you lost it, you can always go on my Class Weebly site and print it out. But you do need to fill it out as we go along with this video, and you will need to hand it in tomorrow. Okay, now what I have here is an analog clock. And as you can see, there's numbers 1 through 12 around the clock. There are also 2 pointers. These pointers are called hands. The big hand is also called the minute hand, and the small hand is called the hour hand. Since the big hand is pointing up at the 12, that means that there are 0 minutes in an hour, and it will stay pointed at the 12 throughout the whole lesson. The hour hand will be pointing at one of these numbers, which will tell us which hour it is, okay? So let's try this. The small hand right now is pointing to the 3, which tells us that it's 3 o'clock. You can write 3 o'clock 2 different ways. The first way looks like this. The 3 before the colon represents the hour, and the 00 after the colon represents that there are 0 minutes in the hour. The second way you can write it is like this. The old clock represents the big hand pointing at the 12, which also tells us that it's 0 minutes in the hour. Okay? Now, let's try something else. We'll put a different time on here. The small hand is pointing at the 10, which tells us that it's 10 o'clock. And again, the big hand is pointing at the 12, which tells us that there's 0 minutes in that hour. Let's try a different time. Now the small hand is pointing at the 6, which tells us that it's 6 o'clock. Let's try something else. The small hand is pointing at the 9, which tells us that it's 9 o'clock. The small hand is now pointing at the 4, which tells us that it's 4 o'clock. And one more. There we go. The small hand is pointing to the 1, which tells us that it's 1 o'clock. Now that's just a short lesson on how you can tell time by the hour. Now, remember boys and girls, the big hand represents the minute hand, which when you're telling time by the hour will always stay pointed at the 12. And the small hand is the hour hand, which will point to whichever number represents the hour that we're talking about. I hope you enjoyed this lesson and have a great night.